It may not have been the easiest watch in the entire world, but the Red Sox got the job done in a absolutely massive way. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Sea Radio. My name is Corbin. The Red Sox finally beat the Houston Astros in a series, taking 2 out of 3 games from the Astros in Minute Maid Park, officially putting them at 67-59 on the year, which is good for 6.5 games back of first place. So they did gain a game there, and more importantly, they didn't lose a game in the wild card spot, officially putting them at 3.5 games back from the third wild card. And I got to tell you, I know we say this a lot, but this may have been the biggest series of the season so far. They kept their hopes of a playoff run alive. And I got to tell you, a big reason for that, surprisingly, was this Red Sox bullpen. So what we are doing in today's videos, we're breaking this series down. We're going to talk about everything that went right for the Red Sox, what's still going wrong for the Red Sox, and obviously how all of this impacts 2024. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one. Let's get into it. Honestly, the theme of this series and the title of this video is clutch moments for a specific reason. The Red Sox came up in some really big moments. That makes it hard to figure out which side of the ball to really start this highlight on. But I think we're going to start with the offense in this one. And I think we have to start, if we're talking about the offense, with Jarren Duran, because this dude is on absolute fire right now. In this series in particular, he had 2 home runs, both of them in really big situations. One on the first pitch of the game, 3 RBIs. He also scored 5 runs, which is really impressive. And on top of that, he had 6 hits. You know Jarren Duran is hot when he's turning normal singles for an average human into Jarren Duran doubles. It feels like when he gets to this point, he's just flat out impossible to get out at the plate. And he did go, I believe it was 7 straight at-bats reaching first base, which is really impressive in this series. But it wasn't just Duran who helped this team out a lot. This was also sort of Triston Casas' coming home party, right? Where you really sort of saw him come back to what he was before he went out. He didn't have a ton of hits. It was only 4 hits, but he did have a bunch of damage. He had a home run and 4 RBIs in this series. And on top of that, he played some really incredible defense over at first base. I genuinely don't know if the Red Sox win this series if Triston Casas does not make the plays that he made over at first base. And it's been a little bit. Don't get me wrong, I like Dom Smith, but having a vacuum like that over there at first totally changes this infield a little bit. We don't win this series if Triston Casas is not on the field. So welcome home, Triston Casas. It's been a minute, but we're happy to have you. And speaking of reasons why the Red Sox won, like Triston Casas, Ceddanne Rafaela, both offensively and defensively, I don't think you win this series without him. Defensively, he was making plays that a year ago would have cost the Red Sox probably multiple games here. He was a magician over at shortstop. I mean, it was genuinely magical to watch. He was making plays where every single time it was hit to him, I was like, oh man, that's an infield single. But every single time he was able to get somebody out. I think Ceddanne at this point defensively is going to be someone we look back on in a couple of years here. He'll still be on the team, obviously, but specifically this season as one of the best defensive seasons we've ever seen, because he's able to do this at 2 of the hardest positions on the entire diamond. And then offensively, he didn't do a ton over the series as a whole, but in the last game, he had 2 incredibly clutch RBIs, which really propelled the Red Sox to their series finale win. And you got to take that every single time. Ceddanne Rafaela is just incredibly fun to watch. This dude should win Rookie of the Year because he is the highest impact rookie in all of Major League Baseball. Outside of those guys, you had incredibly clutch moments all over the place. Masataka Yoshida continues to be one of the hottest hitters in baseball. He had a really big home run in this series. David Hamilton, who just simply continues to prove me wrong every time I talk about him, had an incredibly clutch 9th inning home run. You had big moments from a lot of people in this series, and it wasn't so much with runners in scoring position. They still struggled a bit with that in this series, but they were able to score runs when they needed to score runs. And more importantly, an indication of a really great offense is that they could still find ways to win games when their biggest players or their highest impact players just simply aren't performing. Rafael Devers is struggling right now. Tyler O'Neill is really struggling right now. Connor Wong, I wouldn't put in the same category as O'Neill and Devers, is struggling as well. If you can find find a way to put up 4 runs, 6 runs, and 4 runs with those guys simply not really doing anything to improve this team, that's a key sign that this Red Sox offense is going absolutely nowhere. It's a sign that there's potential for this team to get even better. This is what makes a great offense. Those guys fall down, other guys pick it up and figure out how to get a win, and that's exactly what we saw in this series. I mean, Rafi went 2 for 14 in this one. O'Neill went 0 for 7, and the Red Sox still out-hit the Houston Astros. Those are really big signs that this team is going to be really fantastic offensively for a very long time, at least the rest of the season. At least that's my hope here. I'm not going to jinx it, because every time I talk good about someone, it ends up going the opposite way, and every time I talk bad about someone, they end up pretty much immediately proving me wrong. So I'm going to jokingly here say the Red Sox offense is going to stink it up for the rest of the year just to cover all my bases. But man, it has been a ton of fun to watch this offense go. But it wasn't just the offense that had big moments in this series. So before we get into the pitching, do me a favor. Make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. Helps these videos out a ton. Best way to let me know you're enjoying the content. Thank you all very much for taking a second and doing so. Let's get into some pitching here. In terms of the starting pitching, I would say 2 out of 3 of these performances were really solid. It started with Tanner Houck, who looked like vintage first half Houck a bit. He went 6 full innings. He allowed 3 runs, but only 2 of them were earned. Danny Jansen, shout out for that earned run. And for the first time in a while, he was able to strike out 8 batters. That is a very good sign. Tanner Houck hasn't really been missing a ton of bats lately. He's been able to get a lot of weak contact, but it's been a lot of contact overall, and eventually that was going to come back and bite him. Tanner, if the Red Sox are going to want to actually make a run at this thing, is going to have to be a big part of it. He was a big part of it in the first half. He's going to be a massive part of it in the second half. So getting him to a point where he's missing bats again could be absolutely massive. Obviously, it's just one game, so we're not going to make any declarations, but it's a sign that they are pointing him in the right direction. Unfortunately, the same thing cannot be said about Nick Pivetta, because he ended up going 5 innings. He allowed 5 earned runs on 6 hits and 2 home runs. He walked 3 and struck out 2. This now ties the Red Sox all-time record for most games in a row with multiple home runs at 5. Simply not a great stat to be a record holder in. I got to be honest with you guys. I think I'm out on Nick Pivetta. For a long time here, I have been talking about how Nick Pivetta has another level to get to. You see it in very small bursts, and he is able to get out there basically every single time and give you some sort of innings. And I get a lot of the runs that were scored against him in this series were because he was tipping pitches, but this is just the problem with Nick. It's simply inconsistency on the mound. In terms of the performance you are getting, you don't know if you're getting the good Nick Pivetta, the guy who's going to miss a ton of bats. You don't know if you're getting the bad Nick Pivetta, who's going to give up multiple home runs and is going to just simply not be able to keep runners off the base paths. And going forward, specifically talking about 2025 and beyond, I just think the Red Sox need more consistency in that position, but that's another conversation for another day. But finally, we got Cooper Criswell, who went toe-to-toe with Justin Verlander and kind of outdueled him. He didn't go super deep into the game. He ended up going 4 2/3 innings. He allowed just 1 earned run on a solo home run from the first batter of the game, and he struck out 4. I think you take that every single day of the week. Criswell is sort of like a modified bullpen game for the Red Sox, but if you're going to be able to give them 4 2/3 innings and 1 earned run, that's going to allow the offense to do what they do best, and that is outscore opponents. And at the end of the day, that's what this pitching staff should be doing right now. They obviously aren't going to be in a position to shut out teams like every other game, but if you can give the Red Sox offense an opportunity to build a lead, you're in a good position to win a game, and that's exactly what Cooper Criswell did. Hard to complain about it when you're able to outdo a future Hall of Famer. As for the bullpen, the first game was typical Red Sox second half bullpen, right? You should have realistically swept this series. The bullpen just flat out gave it up. But I gotta tell you, in the other 2 games, they were probably, maybe if not the main reason, one of the biggest reasons why they were able to pull these out. They really stepped up in some really big moments. There were a couple of guys who really came to the table here and threw all their cards down. Luis Garcia is one of those guys. He's been a problem for the Red Sox since acquiring him, But in this series, he threw 2 scoreless innings in 2 really big spots. And for a 37-year-old, he was hitting 97 to 99 on the gun. He clearly wanted to get himself right on the mound. And hopefully this is the beginning of that, because whether you like it or not, Luis Garcia should be playing a big role in this Red Sox bullpen. Mr. Chris Martin continues to just be nails. I mean, that dude, since he came off the IL, has he even allowed an earned run? He has been absolutely everything the Red Sox have needed. Brandon Bernardino, who's been struggling mightily in this second half, came into maybe the biggest situation of the entire series. Bases loaded, 2 outs, up by 2 with Yordan Alvarez, the statistical best hitter against the Red Sox in the history of their organization, and struck that dude out. That is big time balls on the table type stuff from this Red Sox bullpen. And Tyler Murray of WEEI mentioned this on the radio broadcast, but sometimes pitching in the bullpen can be contagious. If a couple of guys suck, it could end up making the rest of the bullpen suck as they're trying to make up for that difference. But when they're good, it could also be contagious as well. And that's the hope. We've been saying for a while now that this Red Sox bullpen has the potential to be as good as they were in the first half of this season. They just need to find it within themselves to get themselves back to that spot. Obviously, this is just one series. Obviously, there was still a bad game in this one, but I'm hoping, like we talked about with Tanner Houck, this is them pointing themselves in the right direction. Overall, looking at this series, again, I know we say this a whole lot here, but this felt like the biggest series win of the season. I think it's hard to debate that, right? They came into this series, if they ended up getting swept, which it felt like in the first game, that might have been a legitimate reality, we're probably sitting here talking about the Red Sox season being over. Instead, not only did they not get swept, they took 2 out of 3 to keep themselves alive in this postseason run. And that's sort of the hallmark of this Red Sox team. We've talked about it this entire year. You want to talk about the fight this Red Sox team has, you point to this series. You sit there and you say, this is a team that despite the obstacles, that despite the odds that keep getting stacked against them during this season, bad pitching, injuries, errors, a young, unexperienced team, it just keeps getting higher and higher. And yet, despite that, they come out here day in and day out and they give it everything they've got. And right now, it's working out swimmingly, right? They are winning more games than they are losing, basically on pure willpower alone. And that is an unbelievable thing that this Red Sox team has been able to achieve. And it was really front and center in this series. This is what the Red Sox need to do. They are going to need to claw and fight by tooth and nail to get into a playoff spot, but this is a good sign that they will be able to do that. What this series did, in my opinion, is give this fan base hope and give this team confidence. And like we've seen basically this entire season, you give this team confidence, you put Fenway Park behind them, dangerous things can happen to opposing teams. So I am absolutely ecstatic that the Red Sox were able to do this. I don't think anyone was expecting them to do this. I think people wanted them to do this, but no one was really expecting it to happen. Well, they did it, and now they have to go against the hottest team in baseball, the Arizona Diamondbacks. They have to sit there, and they have to put their nuts on the table once again and try and get this job done again. But if they can get through that, still in this wild card spot like we've been talking about, basically this entire last couple of weeks here, all of a sudden things change a whole lot. So whatever it takes for this team to win, all gas, no brakes until they see the finish line. But that's just my opinion. So let me know in the comment section down below. What do you think? What do you think of this series? What do you think it meant for 2024? And what do you think it did for you as a fan? Let me know all your thoughts on the latest series in the comment section down below. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor. Make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. Just helps this video out a ton. It's the best way you can let me know you're enjoying the content. Don't forget, if you want to listen instead of watch these episodes, all you got to do is head over to your favorite podcasting app and look up Red Seat Radio. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the red seats.